For example, the freeze cam shot of a player's killer helps the player remember specific troublesome opponents. The Nemesis feature adds an additional reminder that certain enemies are more significant than others. It creates a small negative reinforcement loop by giving players an opportunity to score extra points with a revenge kill.
Maps require impassable boundaries, but unless we restrict the environments to either interior spaces or steep canyons, these boundaries can't always block the player's view of the outlying unreachable area. In our more realistic titles like Half-Life 2, these boundaries often require fictional or visual explanations. In the heavily stylized world of Team Fortress 2, however, conspicuous artificiality is a core design principle, and so we can simplify or altogether ignore these explanations without compromising the player experience. Playtesting showed, for instance, that these low fences leading to an empty expanse successfully conveyed the message that the area beyond the fence is uninteresting and out of bounds.
Each of the Team Fortress classes was designed to make a unique contribution to attack and defense, and control points are, fundamentally, methods of focusing players' attention on these core offensive and defensive activities. They are also useful for drawing players to different points of the map.
In our original design, once attackers were cleared off a point, they lost any progress they'd made towards capturing the point. Playtests revealed that lone players near an enemy control point had no incentive to try to capture it if any enemies were in the area. Furthermore, once a team was reduced to defending a single control point, the stronger attacking team was often unable to successfully assault the final point for the full capture period, which caused too many games to end in a stalemate. We changed the capture mechanic so that the capture progress persists for a while even after the attackers are cleared off the point, and this improvement fixed both of the problems with the original design.
To give players interesting navigation decisions, routes through a map should vary in effectiveness based on the player's current class and the state of the map. Water lets us increase the cost of taking a particular route because swimming is slower than running. Spies often accept that cost in order to infiltrate undetected. Pyros avoid it because their primary weapon is useless underwater. If the enemy has a strong defense, the increased cost of the water route becomes a worthwhile trade-off for any class trying to hit the defenders from behind.
We build our 3D skyboxes at 1/16 scale to reduce the memory used by the large spaces in them. This means that we have to get a little tricky when dealing with trains moving between the skybox and the player space. There are actually two versions of each moving train, a player-scaled one for the actual gameplay space and a tiny one out in the skybox. The small repair sheds on either side of the middle building disguise the point at which we swap between the two trains.
Ideally, matches should end in a victory for one team and a loss for the other. Stalemates are essentially a loss for both teams. To avoid stalemates, our map design considers two key variables: team respawn times and travel time from the respawn point to the front line. The team that's winning gets slightly faster respawn times and more forward respawn points, a positive reinforcement loop that increases the chances for them to push forward and win the game.
To accommodate snipers, maps need wide open spaces, long sight lines, and protective cover. Targets of the sniper require alternate routes that bypass the sniper's sight lines, though these usually have an additional cost, such as increased travel time. This leaves players with a choice. Do they take the more direct but hazardous route, or the safer yet slower route? Sniper positions generally also have a corresponding enemy sniper deck positioned on the other side of the arena, which allows one sniper to counter another, offering cover for teammates in exposed areas.
Stalemates generally occur around doors, where teams have a strong defensive presence on either side of the opening. To help counter this, we provide alternate routes with high travel costs that become more attractive only when the enemy has strong defenses behind the main route. The number of enemy entry points to an area is crucial to its design, since it's extremely hard to hold an area when enemies approach from multiple fronts. This makes one-way exits a useful design tool, since they let us uncouple the number of entry points from the number of friendly offensive routes.
For gameplay purposes, we sometimes need to neutralize the speeds of the classes. For instance, these central door timers were created to ensure that all classes could make it to the middle part of the map by the time the action actually starts. Playtesting showed that it was more fun to have the teams waiting as a group as soon as the doors open. The anticipation of battle combined with the hazardous moving trains creates a great opening clash for the middle control point.
Bulletproof glass is a useful design tool in strongly defended areas such as around control points. It gives the offensive team a chance to see enemy defenders and sentry gun positions while affording the defensive team a good view of the gathering attackers. This is often crucial for the defense if the offense is waiting for a medic's invulnerability charge.
On attack-defend maps, stalemates generally involve a weakly positioned attacking team beating its head against the wall as the timer bleeds out. To avoid this, we encourage likely losses to snowball into actual losses as quickly as possible. We start with a short time limit, and then add time whenever the offensive team succeeds in capturing a point. This way, the round plays out in as short a time as possible and keeps the tension high throughout. Long round times aren't conducive to the sense of urgency we want to create.
Height is a useful feature when designing defensible buildings. For instance, the Cap B building needs to be defended from all directions. The height and windows on all sides give defenders in this building an advantage when launching rockets and grenades from within. Bulletproof glass in some windows lets them safely view approaching enemies.
For soldiers, we design spaces with specific attention to height. Soldiers generally want to be shooting down at the opponents to maximize the effect of their rocket splash damage. The rooftop here gives them that advantage. It can also only be reached with the soldier's rocket jump, making it generally inaccessible to the other classes. Because of the splash damage from rocket jump, soldiers have to trade health for the height advantage. This trade-off, coupled with the lack of health on the roof, lets us make the rooftop a powerful advantage without unbalancing the map, since soldiers will need to rely on medics down below to keep them healthy.
To accommodate the scout class, maps need open spaces that allow scouts to double jump along paths that the other classes can't navigate. This area features a variety of rooftops and rocks that a scout can traverse while staying above any non-scout opponents. Scouts often use their speed advantage to retreat and collect health, so here we force them to adopt some risk by placing the health inside a small enclosed area where they sacrifice some freedom of movement.
The spy is designed for players who want to outsmart their opponents. At a high level, his gameplay flow is to infiltrate the enemy team, move around while disguised, and use his instant kill backstab to take out key enemies, usually snipers, engineers, and medics. His invisibility cloak is designed to help him in two key situations. The first is in getting past the front line, where players are most vigilant against enemies and most suspicious of friends not heading in the right direction. The second is in escaping from enemies who have seen through his disguise while he's in enemy territory. His sapper was designed to allow him to easily take out unattended enemy sentry guns, forcing enemy engineers to keep a close eye on their buildings.
Balancing the strength of the engineer's AI-controlled sentry gun was one of the more difficult design problems in Team Fortress 2. If the gun was too powerful, only the most skilled players would be able to counteract it. If the gun was too weak, the engineer would have no chance against skilled players, effectively eliminating any reason to build it in the first place. Our solution was to make the sentry gun essentially binary in the sense that it's lethal to opponents who don't take cover, but can't intelligently deal with enemies popping in and out of cover. This forces the engineer to use his own secondary weapon skill to compensate for the sentry gun's corner weakness, while still making the sentry gun a formidable obstacle for any opponent simply attempting to sprint past it.
The Scout is designed for players who are able to rapidly move around while tracking their target.